Hey there, Sebastian. And today I'm going to answer 10 questions that we have received this week from members of our Facebook community. So if you're not in our Facebook community, there's a link below this video in the description that should give you the link to get out there. You can ask your question and I'll come back here and answer them for you. All right, let's get started. So the first question is probably the most common question we get, and it is how to price your candles. I actually have a couple of videos. I'll link to those here in the channel that kind of goes in really deep into how we price our candles. But essentially, instead of starting with doing the 3x or 4x your cost of goods to get your price of candles, you really need to work backwards. That's such a philosophy that a lot of people go by, of the 3x or 4x, but it's really not the smartest way to do it. You should be going in reverse. So you should be understanding what your target customer is going to pay for candles and then work backwards. So if your target customer is going to pay, say, $25 for a candle, you need to work backwards and know, how much do I need to make this candle for, so that you're making the margins that you need to. So work backwards. How do you know what your customers are going to pay? You got to figure out who your customer is. So going and shopping where your customers shop, understanding the products that they're buying, what they're spending. So what we started doing when we first started was all the stores that we saw that our customer that we were going after, where they would shop, we went into those stores and we started picking up candles and pricing them. And so for us, it was, oh, they're spending 28, 30, $35, in that range for candles. So then we started we have a 26 and we have a $34 candle, and we worked backwards of how much money do we need to make on this? Then we can understand what the cost of goods we can spend is. So on a $26 candle, we try to get our cost of goods under $5. So that's more than 5x the cost of goods. The next question here is, what is the best POS website hosting? So what is what is a POS? So a POS is going to be your point of sale. So we use Shopify for ours. It's what we use here in the store. It's what we use online. That's who we get our website through. So to answer the second question of website hosting, you can just get right through Shopify. Sign up for a Shopify account. You can then buy a domain straight through them. You can also transfer that elsewhere in the future, so you're not stuck with them. You can also we buy the rest of our websites through Squarespace. You can just buy it from them and hook it right up to your Shopify account. So whatever direction you want to go is fine with that. But we use Shopify for our computer system. So people buy on our website right through that. Any of the markets that we do in person, we use Shopify for. And then also then here in our store, we use it as well. So it's versatile. All of our sales go through there. Also with our wholesale accounts, we are able to send out invoices to collect payment on those as well, right through Shopify as well. And then at the end of the year, it has all the reporting, taxes, all of that will be right together for you. Next question. How long is a true time frame for testing your candles? Okay, so for us, we do 464 soy candles, and we will make the candle. We'll let it cure 5 days, test it, and go from there. That's it. We don't wait 2 weeks. We've tested millions of candles. It seems like thousands of candles, I should say. And at first, we started with the 2 weeks, and we slowly decreased that amount. And we have tested the exact same candle from 3 days to 2 weeks. And we found that after 5 days, we aren't seeing any difference in the way that candle performs. So that's us. That's how that wax works. And so if that's a wax you're using, that's what I would recommend. Some suppliers and a lot of people will suggest waiting 2 weeks for everything. There's some waxes such as virgin coconut soy or coconut soy blends that only take 48 hours. So look what the manufacturer suggests, but then also do your own testing and seeing what other supplies do you need other than what comes in the candle making kit that gets started. Okay, so what other supplies do you need? So you buy one of those kits and you want to expand beyond that. What else do you need? Okay, so those kits generally are going to include some wax, possibly a pitcher, because they're going to have you do the boiler method with it. It's going to have like a candy thermometer, a little bit of oil, the wick, and a wick sticker there, right? So the other things that you got to think of. So as you grow and expand, once you buy a kit one time, generally you're not going to buy a kit anymore. You're going to realize, oh, I need a lot more of this. I'm going to need some more of that, especially a wax, because you're going to go through wax quick, because you're going to make a lot of candles that aren't going to turn out, and that's okay. Same thing with oil. You're going to need, definitely more oil. I'd buy those individually rather than through a kit. Also with the wicks and the wick stickers, buy a lot of the suppliers will have a variety pack. So instead of just buying, say, one size of wick, buy the sampler. That's going to give you several options there. That will avoid a lot of frustration whenever one wick doesn't work and you need to start over. So you're not spending that time of ordering online, having them deliver to you just to start all over again, just to realize, okay, now I need to make another adjustment. those sampler packs can really get you off to a good start there. So what else are you going to need? You're going to need the vessels, whatever you're going to want your candles to go into. You can start. What we encourage people to do is start with a small vessel. Something like this vessel here. This is a straight sided jar. It's considered a 9 ounce. We pour 7.5, or 6.5. So it's actually a 7 ounce pour. The jar itself is considered a 9 ounce. It's a 7 ounce pour. It's 9 ounce at the very top. So we suggest these for testing with, just to get the right percentage of oil and wax combination down, because you're not going to waste a lot. So you're not pouring a 10 ounce, a 12 ounce, 14 ounce. Pour small, test it, see if you like to burn on that percentage, and then you can scale up from there and make larger candles. Let's see here. What is the best wick to use? So generally, the supplier of your wax is going to give you a recommendation for wicks, and just use that. Start there, then you can try others. But generally, one of the things that a lot of us do, I know we did ourselves, is when that first candle that we are testing doesn't turn out right, we start trying other wicks, and we start changing other things. We start changing the percentages of oils. And then sometimes we even change the wax. A lot of times we just didn't do something right. It wasn't necessarily either of those items. It was we didn't do something right. And likely it's we didn't get the right temperatures. We didn't melt the wax to the right temperature. We didn't start blending at the right temperature, and we didn't pour at the right temperatures. Those three temperatures are crucial to any candle making. So get those down right. Make sure you're doing that correctly, and stick with what the manufacturer says. For us, we like in 464, we like CD wicks. That's what we use. We've tried a bunch of them. CD is what we like. And what we really like about it is they burn well enough to where we can have a large vessel like this. Like this is it's a 14 ounce candle for us. This is the RS or Makesy. We can single wick these. So these are really big, wide. The CD wick on these works just fine. So for us, CD wicks are great for soy wax, and with our coconut soy, we use performance wicks. But there's other options out there. Just know that if something's not performing correctly, you might not have the right size wick. That's a lot of times what will happen. But people may think, oh, these wicks aren't good. It's like you don't have the right size wick in there, and that is one thing where the suppliers don't always give you accurate information. So a lot of our candle vessels, it'll say that they recommend a certain size wick, and a lot of times that's going to be off, and that's going to vary. Fragrance oil percentages is going to really change the size wick, because the oils are going to burn hotter or cooler based on how the percentages that you have in there. So your wick size is going to change. Also, the oil themselves, from like a cinnamon, a vanilla, those type, versus a floral or a spa type. So the actual makeup of the fragrance is going to change how it's going to burn. And so you can have a drastic change in wick size based on that. For instance, we have our timeless collection over there. It's our 10, original candles. It's our 10 ounce glass. In those 10 candles, there are 4 different wicks in those. So just keep that in mind. So they're all exactly the same size, but the wicks, we have 4 different sizes amongst those 10 because of the way that they burn and the way they perform. So if we were to go by the wick guide, it told us one thing. It wouldn't have worked for a lot of the other ones. We might have been frustrated and tried a different wick. Stick with the wick. See if you can get it to work. Then if there's a preference of wick changes, then go for it and explore. Next question is how to make the transition from friends and family to ongoing customers. So when you're first starting out, friends and family, sometimes we got to rely on that, and there's coworkers, things like that. But how to transition to customers? So you've got to get out there. You've got to go where your customers are. So for us, that was starting at markets. We did the markets on the weekends, and all around Western Michigan here. Get our products out there and start picking up customers. And every time someone purchases from you, you capture their email address. Even if it's in person, you ask them for their email address, and that's how you start building your list. So it's a long game. This is not a make candles and next month I can quit my day job. We did ours pretty quick. So we went from selling our first candle in February, opening a storefront on August 1st, but we worked really hard. So you've got to get out there. You've got to make connections and, shaking hands. And one of the good things that we did for us was we got into wholesale right away. So we knew that we're only doing markets on Saturdays. What am I doing the rest of that week with my candle? Obviously, I'm working my 9 to 5 job, but what can I do to further my business? Wholesale accounts. I was reaching out, I was creating my master spreadsheet that had all of the contacts that I wanted to reach out to, and I built that out. I actually have a wholesale course that goes over exactly how I do it. That's already proven successful for people that have started taking it since it's been out. So having a strategy around wholesale that really helped us. It brought in business when just customers didn't know who we were because we were making those connections with the local community stores to go into their shops and then keep expanding, keep expanding. And so now we're over 108, 112 shops now, and it's been just over 2 years. So wholesale is a great way of doing it. Then people are buying your candles from those locations, and then whenever they're out, they can just buy it from you directly instead of having to go back to that store because you have a website built out. So that's what we would do. Just one option for you from transitioning further than that. Consistently posting on social media is a fantastic way of kind of growing as well. Again, but it's not going to be overnight. You're not going to post a video and then have 500 followers tomorrow, and then of those 500 followers, they're going to get 50 to buy from you. That's just not reality. It's not how it's going to work. It's a very slow game, but it pays off in the end. So you've just got to be consistent and keep going for it. Let's see here. How to avoid sinkholes in candles. Good question. Generally, sinkholes are caused by the speed of cooling of the candle, right? So when I pour my really hot wax in here, it's going to take a long time for that candle to cool down. And so it's going to it's going to solidify on top before it does in the middle. And then since for soy wax, it contracts and expands. So it's going to contract as it cools down. But where it's solidified on top is solid. And now it's going to start to break and fall in. And so you're going to get the sinkholes around there, right? So it's typical. It happens, especially with soy. So a couple ways that you can try to avoid those is going to be the biggest way is going to be how cool you pour at, right? So we always recommend pouring under 140 degrees because the cooler the wax is when it goes in here, the less likely it is going to have sinkholes because the sinkholes is when it's expanded and then it needs to contract as it cools. So as cool as it can be when you pour it in here is going to prevent a lot of those. So pouring cool is the best way of avoiding those. So but the other thing would just be to know that with soy, it's just gonna happen, right? So it's not a big deal. Just have a heat gun, even if it doesn't have any sinkholes across the top whenever it completely solidifies, always go over with a heat gun, melt a very thin layer, about an eighth of an inch or so across the top there. Because if there's a sinkhole, you'll see it. You'll be able to see underneath there and then it'll start to fill in. So those are the two things I would recommend is one, don't worry about it. Always they're unavoidable, so don't worry about it. But the other thing is do try to pour as cool as you possibly can. Same thing that's going to happen with that. And I know this wasn't the question, but that is how you get better adhesion as well. So the cooler you pour, the more it's going to stick to the side when you pour it in there. Kind of think of it like how a kid would touch a hot stove or something, right? Like if it's hot, then they jump back real quick. So if the temperature difference between this vessel and what you're pouring into it is really wide, it's going to jump back from the glass. And that's why you're going to see if you pour too high, you're going to get wet spots. The cooler you pour generally is going to cure a lot of that. But again, soy wax is always going to contract and expand. So it's unavoidable. It's not a big deal. We have never had a customer. In fact, this one actually has a little bit of a little wet spots in there. We've never had a customer pick up a candle, look at it, put it back down, and grab the one behind it because they saw a wet spot. It's us as makers that we want them to be perfect. The other thing you can do is if you have a really big label, you can always cover up the wet spot if you want. But again, this could be a perfect candle for 2 weeks, and then I throw it up in my window and it expands, which would be fine. But then I go back and put it in the back of the shop and where it's cooler and it can contract and cause a wet spot. So just get over it. It's okay. Don't worry about them. You try to avoid them, but some things you just can't avoid. So the candle's still going to be great. Just a couple more questions. And how to grow my business online. Post on social media constantly, reaching out to your email list. So you should have on your website, you should have a pop-up where you can collect people's emails. Generally, anytime you go to a new website, you'll see this. It'll pop up. It'll ask for email addresses for like a 20% discount off of your first order. Collecting people's email addresses, that is how you're going to grow. So that you can reach out to those people at all times because social media is great. So you do want to get some followers there. However, when you post something on social media, maybe 10% of the people that follow your page are going to see your post. It's just, especially as you grow, unless you're paying for ads, because that's what Facebook and Instagram wants you to do, is they want you to pay for ads to put your posts in front of your customers. And so if you're not paying for ads, a lot of people aren't going to see your post. So you just got to be consistent. But growing your email list, that is what I recommend to everyone. Grow that email list. And the last question, how to select and measure the right amount of fragrance. So how to select and measure the right amount of fragrance. So how you select fragrances is based on what you want the candle to smell like. We blend the majority of our uh, um, candles. They're going to be a combination of 2 or 3 oils together that Chad comes up with. And that's just kind of the passion of the creative side there. There's a lot of fantastic oils just right out of the bottle. And if you're just starting out, just do that. Just pour something right out of the bottle. All the suppliers now have fantastic oils that you can pour without having to add anything else into it. So that's how we would select that for the first part of the question. That's what I would say there. Second part is how to measure the right amount of fragrance. So you to measure a couple things here. So I would start with 8%. 8% is what I would start with. It's what we pour for 90% of our candles. Some we go up and some actually we go down on, based on if there's a much of a difference that we find whenever we're doing our testing. But start with 8%. And it says how to measure the right amount of fragrance. So we use a different scale. So we have a digital scale that measures to the hundredth, right, on the scale. So it's very precise. And so that's what we use for our oil. So we have a larger scale that we use for our measuring our wax out, right? And because it doesn't have to be down to the hundredth, but then for oil, we do. We have a much more detailed scale. They're less than $20 to get those. But then you're not wasting a lot by rounding up and rounding down. You're gonna have consistency across all of your candles. That's how we measure our fragrances. In the notes below, there is a free ultimate guide to supplies. And so it has a list of all of the supplies that we use to make candles with. So you can download that for free and it'll actually have our scales on there. So you can click on there. They're on Amazon, so you can get them on Prime and get them delivered right away if you want to. So yeah, hopefully this video has helped you. Super candid, just kind of all over the place, but hopefully this kind of answers some questions for a lot of you. So if you have questions yourself, again, hop into our Facebook community. A link for that is below as well. Hop in there and ask your questions, and I will answer them every week. Take care. Thanks.